Alabama is a great state, but like every state, it's not for everyone. Today, I'm going to tell you why people from Alabama say Alabama isn't for them. We've been running surveys asking people in each state why they don't like living in their state. And I'll tell you, most replies went something like this: I love my state, but they go crazy on taxes and fees, or whatever the subject could be. No place is perfect. Even if you love your state, I'm sure you could come up with a few reasons that would make you consider putting it in the rearview mirror. What I found interesting, California, Oklahoma, and Florida got more responses together than the rest of the country combined. Alabama was the 22nd state to join the Union. It's about 52,000 square miles, and the population is just over 5 million residents. But since 1900, they've only had 3 decades where they grew in double digits. Most decades, they only gained like 2 or 3 or 5%. That's better than Mississippi and Arkansas, but way worse than Georgia and Florida. Today, we look at 20 reasons locals say Alabama ain't for everyone. Let's take a look. Number 20, weather. The hot, humid summers and the potential for severe weather, including hurricanes and tornadoes, might deter a lot of people from Alabama. With people from the South, weather is a very common conversation, or it becomes an afternoon greeting. Alabama is very much a deep South state. If you aren't from the U.S., if someone mentions a place that's in the South, you know that means hot, humid summers and mosquitoes. It also means sweet teas available everywhere. The hottest months will be June, July, and August, where it'll stay in the high 80s and the mid 90s most of the time, with a few heat waves here or there. It's the kind of heat where you're sweating standing in the shade doing nothing. Number 19, education system. Alabama often ranks lower in the national education rankings, which might concern families with school-aged children. With concerns about student performance, funding, teacher retention, and resource allocation, this might worry parents that are, concerned about their kids getting a decent education. 99% of the time, it's not the teacher or the administration's problem. It's a money problem, and how the politicians value what's going on in the school. And here's a hint, they rarely care. You know why? It doesn't pay because it's public. But if everyone has to go to charter schools, there's an industry that they could get behind because all their millionaire buddies have pieces of charter schools. Not all charter schools, but enough to make it bothersome. When you look at the high school graduation rate, Alabama sits at 87.93%, which puts them 45th in the nation. The national average is 91%. If you look at the college level, the people with a 4-year degree is about 27.43%, which ranks them 46th in the nation. Now, you will see this really strange thing about how they have the most doctorate degrees in the nation, which I believe that's still true. I've seen different facts. It doesn't have much to do with their school system. It has to do with Huntsville. Huntsville is a big part of the NASA program, so a lot of people with doctorate degrees will go work there. 18, healthcare access. Now, this was a big complaint by a lot of people. Puts them at number 18. In some regions of Alabama, there's limited access to healthcare services, especially in the rural areas. Now, their cities are doing great, well-funded, lots of access. Just the rural areas, you got a bit of a drive, and that plays a big part in the healthcare system, accessibility. Like teachers, if they've got really bad scores in healthcare, it's not the doctors, it's not the nurses, it's the access. Not enough hospitals, not enough doctors, not enough emergency rooms. This can affect residents' ability to receive timely and comprehensive medical care, impacting overall health outcomes. And when you have an aging population like Alabama does, it can turn deadly for a lot of them. 17, job opportunities. While certain sectors are growing, Alabama's economy might not offer the same level of opportunities or diversity as more economically developed states, especially in high-tech, research, and development sectors. Now, obviously, Huntsville, like we talked about before, that's a different story. The rest of the state needs to up their game on drawing in tech companies. If you don't have an educated workforce, those tech companies aren't going to show up. 16, the political climate. Alabama's political landscape is predominantly conservative and very Republican. Individuals with more liberal viewpoints might feel out of place or concerned about the state's policies on various social, environmental, and economic issues. There were a lot of comments in the survey about how their politicians are completely out of touch with most of the state. There was also a lot of references to how the state is controlled by the religious right. A lot of people like to say, well, if you don't like it, move. That's not how you do things. That's a quitter's mentality. If you don't like it, you stay there. And if it's really important to you, you get involved in changing things. That's how America's supposed to work. Now, if you can't survive there because of jobs, that's a different story. You got to survive, and that's when people leave states. But if it's something like political climate, you stay and fight for your state. That's just my opinion. Number 15, rural nature. Now, this one kind of, I don't know, it surprised me a little bit. I've been to Alabama, and I think they got some big cities, but much of Alabama is rural, which might not appeal to those who prefer amenities, conveniences, and lifestyles of urban environments. The rural setting might limit access to cultural events, dining, and entertainment options. I've been to Birmingham, I've been to Huntsville, I've been to Mobile. I've been through Montgomery, and I've been through Tuscaloosa. Didn't really spend a lot of time there. These are good-sized cities. They're not New York or Los Angeles size, but they're good-sized cities, so I just found it strange a lot of the people in the survey complained about not having really big cities. 14, public transportation. The state has limited public transportation options, especially outside the major cities. Again, it's a very rural place outside of their city, so they're not going to have hardly any public transportation. You're walking if you don't own a car or bicycle. This obviously can be a drawback to those that rely on public transportation. There's a website called All Transit, and All Transit will rank all the different cities by their public transportation system, their trains, their buses, whatever. Alabama's first city on that list is at number 241, Mobile, Alabama. Montgomery, 263, and Huntsville, 280. Birmingham is 295. Pismo Beach beat them all. "13, cultural diversity. Compared to larger and more metropolitan areas, Alabama may offer less cultural diversity. This can impact the availability of cultural events, international food, and multicultural communities." Number 12, income levels. The average income level in Alabama is lower than the national average, which might not be attractive to professionals seeking lucrative job opportunities. Again, Huntsville's a different story if you're, a scientist. Income can also affect the quality of life and access to different services. The average income, the personal income per capita in the United States, is $61,738. In Alabama, it's $48,540, ranking them 49th. Alabama does have a lower cost of living than most states, but the difference is a little too great. Number 11, property tax. Alabama's low property tax can reflect the funding and quality of public services, such as schools and infrastructure. While appealing to a lower homeowner costs, it might result in less investment in public amenities. A lot of the people that clicked this one and left a comment were complaining about the cost of their property tax. This is a perfect example of when your opinion doesn't match up with the statistics. Alabama has the second cheapest property tax in the nation, 0.37%. Show you how low that is, New Jersey is 2.13%. Number 10, crime rates. Alabama has some places that you should avoid, that they're pretty freaking dangerous. As far as their bigger cities go, Birmingham takes first prize. It has one of the highest violent crime rates in the nation right now. Their violent crime rate is 355% above the national average, while the town of Anniston has a violent crime rate that's 120% above the national average. Anniston, though, has a buttload of problems. Almost a quarter of their population lives below the poverty line. I brought that up in a video years ago, and a local rapper sent me an email. Told me it'd be best if I never came to Anniston. I told him not to worry, the chances of that happening are about the same as him getting a gold record. He didn't seem very happy after that. Mobile has a pretty high violent crime rate. The only city that doesn't have an above average violent crime rate in Alabama is Huntsville. It's actually 19% below the national average. Number 9, healthcare indicators. The state struggles with various health issues, ranking poorly in national health indicators. High rates of obesity, diabetes, and heart disease can be concerning for individuals focused on health and wellness. Alabama is one of the worst in the country when it comes to the health of the population. It's one of the most obese states, coming in number 3. They lead the nation in high blood pressure and cholesterol. Quote Bob Zaney, they checked their blood for cholesterol and found bacon. Number 8, environmental concerns. Potential environmental issues like pollution and water quality can affect residents' quality of life. And this is a big problem with a lot of people that left comments in the survey. The water quality was horrible, they said. A lot of that has to do with industrial and agricultural practices, and not a lot of policies over the decades curbing what they could put into the groundwater or pump into the rivers, streams, and lakes. U.S. News ranked Alabama as 48th in pollution. The only 2 states that beat them, Louisiana and Indiana. Indiana's biggest problem is they just pump all kinds of toxins into the groundwater because of all the agriculture they have going on there. Louisiana's just a mess. Number 7, recreational activities. Limited recreational activities and entertainment options in certain areas might not appeal to everyone. Now, I think this has to do with their rural nature of the state. There's plenty going on in their cities, just like any city. But when you get into smaller towns and rural areas, which they have a lot of in Alabama, things get a little slow. And I could see where that's a little boring to some people. Not saying that's horrible. Some people love that. That could be said about a lot of things on this list. I mean, the heat might not bother people at all. The rural nature, political climate, hey, that might be great for some of you. Some people hate it. Number 6, social issues. The pace of progress on social issues, including the LGBTQ rights and racial equality, might not meet the expectations of those from more, let's say, progressive areas, affecting their sense of community and belonging. Honestly, if you look at any list or any study about the most racist states or the most anti-LGBT community states, you're going to find Alabama at least in the top 10, but probably in the top 5. Now, this one's on the list and I have to bring it up because I'm trying to stay to the list. And I hate bringing this one up because you're going to get all these people in the comment section. Good, that's the way I like it. Thanks for telling me where I can move to. Don't be afraid of people you don't understand. Learn from them. But make sure you have your Briggs comment section bingo card handy, because I promise you, thanks for letting me know where not to move is going to be on there. Number 5, infrastructure. Infrastructure in some parts of Alabama, particularly the rural areas, might not meet the standards some residents expect, affecting transportation, communication, and access to services. Now, it's gotten a lot better in the last 5 years, but when I first started doing these lists, the only state that had fewer people with high-speed internet was Arkansas. But at the time, Arkansas did lead the country in people afraid of the internet. But they also led the country at one point in people crushed by boulders. Number 4, natural disasters. This was one of those ones that everyone had a lot to say about. Beyond tornadoes and hurricanes, the risk of flooding and other natural disasters can be a significant concern, impacting insurance costs and living conditions. I think if you're not from the South, you don't realize that a lot of these states have some pretty bad flooding that happen every single year. They also get wildfires just like any other state that has trees or bushes. But if you look at the hurricanes, they've been hit by some good ones. 2020, they got hit by Hurricane Sally. 2018, it was Tropical Storm Alberto, which was an off-season storm. 2004, Hurricane Ivan. They got a little break from any major ones, but in 1979, they got hit by Hurricane Frederick, which was pretty bad. Alabama is the 6th most hurricane-hit state in the U.S. With 24 recorded making landfall, 5 of those were major hurricanes, and 14 were Category 1. 5 were Category 2. Now, they've had a whole bunch that affected the state, like Hurricane Katrina and stuff, but they weren't directly hit by the hurricane. Hurricane Katrina did have 2 fatalities that were indirect in Alabama, but it caused about $1.5 billion in damages in Alabama alone. Now, I just brushed over a lot that goes on in Alabama when it comes to natural disasters. You could honestly do a 30-minute video on it. So I just totally broad brushed it. Number 3, cost of living. While the Alabama cost of living is generally low, the cost of living in certain urban areas can be relatively high without a corresponding increase in wages, affecting affordability and quality of life, and that's exactly what's going on in Alabama. The wages in Alabama are pretty much stagnant and have been for quite some time. Meanwhile, the cost of everything has gone up. So if you're sitting someplace like California, Texas, Florida, or New York, and you're looking at how much things cost in Alabama, you're all, that is so cheap. But if you're in Alabama, you're all, things are too expensive. Number 2, historical context. Now this one's a little strange. The history of Alabama is not the best. From the Civil War to civil rights, most of Alabama's history has to do with a lot of ugly parts of this nation's history. Are they the worst? No. Did most of this happen a very long time ago? Absolutely. But the reputation that they have will take generations to get past. This was brought up a lot in the survey, especially when it came to the civil rights movement of the 1960s. And it's not just Alabama that has to deal with situations like this. Look at what's going on in California right now. If California fixed all its problems this week, our grandkids will be talking about how California was in bad shape in the 2020s. It's like Detroit. I mean, Detroit's getting better as we speak. Their downtown looks great. But for a society to get past where it was, it's going to take quite a while. Alabama's no different. Not saying they've been perfect since the civil rights movement, but the civil rights thing was from 1954 to 1968. And the state is still carrying the weight of it. That may not bother you, but it bothered enough people to make it onto this list. All right, before we get to number 1, don't forget we have another channel called On This Day. There's a link for that channel down below. All right, on to number 1. And number 1, the lifestyle. So this one came up more than any other thing, but the responses were very different. A lot of people said that the church-going lifestyle and the Republican conservative lifestyle is a bit much for a lot of the people that live in Alabama. They also brought up the way these people like to party. That was another part of the lifestyle. Totally two different things, but they were brought up on the same one. Of course, they brought up the racism, and they brought up how hard it is to live with the rural lifestyle, which this is one of those things where people love that. Some people hate it. Overall, lifestyle in Alabama, influenced by culture, climate, and communities, might not align with everyone's personal preference, priorities, and values, leading them to seek other locations that are a better fit for them. I was kind of surprised by this one, I gotta admit. All right, that's today's video. Hope you guys enjoyed it. Have a great day. Be nice to each other.